You are listening to the 90 Days Later podcast with Anna Charles, episode 137. Welcome to the 90 Days Later podcast, where I show you how life with less alcohol is more fun than you think. I work with high achievers who struggle to drink a glass of wine without it turning into 2 bottles. I'm the one they call when they want to take it or leave it. So if you want to change your relationship with alcohol that doesn't involve counting days sober, you're in the right place. Hi all, and welcome back to the podcast. Today's episode is rather a personal one. It's kind of a letter I've written to past Anna. And this is really what I wished I'd told myself. And if you are where I was, if you are stuck in the rut of drinking too much, even if everyone around you tells you to stop making such a fuss, if you're fearful of the future, worried about the interestingness, if that's a word, of the future with less wine in it, and if you're also super low on belief that you'll actually be able to change, seeing as you've been drinking too much for a long time, well, then this is a love letter to that version of you who so wants to change but feels trapped. And as always, I'm going to give you solutions and information here you can take action on. So this is for you. If you keep telling yourself you're going to start to change your drinking, but then you don't. Maybe you don't make the time, or you keep putting it on the back burner. Maybe you say you'll start tomorrow, but tomorrow never comes. And that drink plan, well, it never seems to get written. And if you do write it, you never seem to follow it. Why does that happen? Oh, well, it's a number of things. You think you don't have the time. You think you don't know what to write. You don't know what to decide. You worry that your plan is achievable, but then you fear the feelings of restlessness and deprivation that would come with that success, because it would mean you'd actually be drinking less, which you want, but you don't want. And you worry that your plan won't be achievable, or you don't want to feel exposed or embarrassed to feel failure if it doesn't work. On and on and on. And then the upshot of all of this is that you hide and you don't do anything at all. No drink plans written, no cravings interrogated, all drinks consumed, no possibility of the feelings of anxiety or overwhelm disappearing anytime soon. And your plans to drink less? Well, you are for sure going to take action, but not just yet. Maybe you'll do something after your vacation, or you'll give yourself until the end of 2025, all right, and all the rest of it. And why? Often because you want to be realistic. Now, I have many thoughts on the concept of realistic and being realistic. Yes, I do think it is important when changing our relationship with alcohol that we don't aim for perfection. This is why I don't like the whole day counting thing, as I think that requires us to go from basically messiness to pristine perfection in 24 hours. And I do believe we should set targets that you feel are doable, especially in the beginning. But there is being realistic and there is being scared. I have worked with so many people now that I see this so often. We are capable of so much more than we think. And my role as a coach is to help you tread that path so you are pushing yourself forward without leaving yourself out to dry. Now, before I talk about that in depth, a brief segue into not dropping into all or nothing thinking, all or nothing energy. And this is where you've been drinking too much on the Monday and you think by the Tuesday you need to have this all sorted out, or it's not going to be good enough, right? You really need a guarantee it's going to happen that super quick. Now, this all or nothing spectrum creates a lot of pain and a lot of frustration and a lot of not achieving your goals, because it's highly unlikely you will change from one day to the next. And if you set that up as your expectation, you're likely to be disappointed. And we all know where that ends, more drinking. So we're not going to be talking about that kind of immediate change, right? That's not the point of today's podcast. But Here's the thing that I see again and again. It is possible to change your relationship with alcohol far more quickly than you will think possible, right? So we're not talking one day to the next, but we're also not talking 5 years. Now, it may have taken you years and years, literally, to develop your drinking habit. I know it did me. I had to work really hard to like the wine, but within a matter of months, you will be free of the struggle. Now, I'm recording this in June 24. By Christmas this year, it is possible for you to have completely transformed your relationship with alcohol. Even though there is no magic pill for this, right? It's going to require you to do the work. And if you're DIYing it, then it could take you longer as you don't have the exact path laid out in front of you. But that's what I give my clients. It's kind of like the yellow brick road. We just have to stay on the path and keep moving forward, even when things go wrong, or just get back on the path and just keep going. It will happen in less than 6 months, often far quicker than that. But so often we just think it's going to take way longer than it needs to. Right, we kind of have this whole big story about all the things we're going to have to do and all the time it's going to take us. And how does this show up? Well, it shows up in this thing called one-day energy, right? When we say things like, one day I am going to sort this drinking thing out. One day I'm going to go on vacation and not day drink. One day I'm going to be able to trust myself to have just the one. One day for sure, just not today. Now, if you have a tendency to procrastinate in your life, things like put off taking out the rubbish, put off filing the accounts, put off replying to your aunt's email, you may see this already with your drinking. Like I said at the top of the podcast, this was absolutely me. So the way you fix this is you start to become aware of it. And you intentionally switch from one day energy to today energy. How do you do that? By asking yourself this question. Are you ready for it? How do we really start getting it done now? This is such a high value question. You can use it for everything, especially the things you know you're avoiding. Right? How can we just start getting it done now? Now, if you're listening to this and you're like, but I have been doing that, Anna, I really have. I actually have been, doing the things and it makes no difference. I want you to ask, have you really been all in on it? Or have you just kind of, sort of been doing the work now and then? How many drink plans have you made? How many times have you been aware of your desire before you drink? How many times have you tried to not fight the cravings? How long have you been doing it, but not seriously, right? Not fully committed? How long have you been listening to your excuses and not really challenging yourself on them? Then how long are you saying you've been at this already? Oh God, I'm that person who's been at this for 5 years and it's still as bad as ever. And you use that to mean it's not going to happen for you. It's not going to work for you, right? And that doesn't help. So what's really helpful instead is when you get a better frame of reference for your starting point. And it could just be, right, no matter what's happened in the past, today is my starting point, right? This moment right now, listening to this podcast. So whatever it is, just get a better frame of reference, a more useful, a more aware, a more factual frame of reference for your starting point. And even if you've been nibbling away at this for years and you're no further along, okay, right? Let's just start today, right? Kind of like properly start today. Today is the new starting point. And then we want to get to work and get it done. And here are some things I want you to think about as you go to get this done. The first is you need to be really clear and experiment with this to prove yourself how is it true that it gets harder the longer you give yourself, especially the moments where you want to decide to give yourself more time, right? Because you failed or because it's hard and because it's getting really painful. I've just got to give myself this really long runway. I'm not going to expect to do this, for a couple of years. I want to offer it gets harder the longer you give yourself, right? Because the longer you give yourself, the harder you make it. Here's what happens. I think we give ourselves too much time or more time because we think if we do that, it's going to be easier, right? There's something in the future will change and then we'll be better prepared. And we don't just realize that the delaying is actually what is making it significantly harder. I want you to think about how that might be true. How every day you're living with this as a struggle, right? Or as a worry, or as something you don't think you can do, or don't believe you can change, or something you're really angry about. You get really angry about how you can't change your drinking. How every day you're not able to finish that book because you can't read more than a page at a time because you're drinking. Think about all the time you've been putting your life on pause, waiting for the one day when you will finally crack this. All right? Think about that. Taking longer. It's making it harder. Another one I want to have you think about is it's actually harder to not take action than to take action. You may resist this for a moment, but let's think about it. It really is so hard not to take action because you're living with the problem while you're knowing you're not doing something about it. At least when you're trying to do stuff, at least even if you're failing, you're still taking action towards the result you want. You're taking action you can evaluate. You're learning at minimum from what's not working. And even if it isn't quite good enough to achieve yet what you want to achieve, it still feels way better than doing nothing or just trying just a little. Now, on that scale, introducing the idea of just trying just a little, at least doing nothing comes with a little bit of bliss of avoidance, right? You can just sort of not look at it and just hunker down with your glass of wine, right? We're not even pretending we're doing something. It's actually harder still, I think, and more uncomfortable to kind of just nibbling at it, trying to do it, but not really. Right, it's in between where you're trying just a little bit, where you kind of pretend you're giving it your all, but you're really not. It's like you're trying to convince yourself, but nothing is happening. So when we say things like, I'm doing all the things, I'm really doing it and nothing's working. What's wrong with me? And then we start to blame ourselves. I want you to test this and think about how that might be true for you. And then how does that feel? And what would be different now if you, rather than just accepting that is me, I'm just going to go all in. I'm actually really going to do this. The other item I want to think about here when we're thinking about delaying our future is I find it so helpful that the concept of momentum, right? And then just to keep going. You can see how this helps with other things in your life. And I think about this with regard to fitness, right? About 7 years ago, I decided I was going to get fit and I started to run. And so I now have a running regime. I run every other day. That's it. Simple, sorted. Doesn't matter, whether it's a Monday, Sunday, Wednesday, whatever. I run every other day. And that's how I run. Now, there have been a few times when it just wasn't possible for one reason or another. I was maybe on a ferry, or maybe it was really snowy and I didn't want to risk of a slip and a fall. I mean, these are legit reasons, not excuses. But even when they were really legitimate, I said, yeah, actually, I'm choosing actively to not run today for this reason. In each case, when I got out of the rhythm, it was much harder to get back into the routine than it is just to stay in the routine, right? So I'm just not making any choice decisions made. I'm doing this. This is what I talk about with our drink plans, right? We just decided. I'm just not going to revisit it. I've decided. It makes it so much easier. And I believe this about taking steps to change your relationship with alcohol. If you're doing it, do it yourself, right? DIY. This is going to be something that will crop up and will be a challenge that you'll need to be aware of. And this is why one of the reasons why working with a coach like me is so good, because I'm there turning up, come rain or come shine. I am there keeping you consistent, keeping you on point. So if you are suffering because you are delaying your future and all of this is resonating, what is the antidote to this? Well, it really is just to get started. I want you to allow all the feelings to come up, all the fear, all the doubt, all the hesitation, and just do it. It's like when you rip off a plaster or a Band-Aid, I suppose you'd say in the States. You just rip it off. It's like the time my son rolled his hand down this wooden banister and got loads of splinters. Right? I just grabbed his arm and just set to, and I just was plucking out the splinters. I couldn't sit there gently, talking to him and gently teasing. No, I just had to get on with it. We're just going to do it and then it's done, right? It may feel deeply uncomfortable when you do this, when you think about what you need to do to change your relationship without all those things you need to go through. But consider how if you just sort of, you've been nibbling away for years, maybe. I mean, I talk with people that say, I've been trying to do this for as long as I can remember. Think about the pain there. If you could have been done with this 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 1 year ago, right? So we're just going to get started. And I really encourage you to not entertain the thought this is not working, and really going for what you want and going for it now and not at some potential time in the future. It will not be any easier in the future. Guarantee. Because we do this work in real life. I say it's better when you have all the distractions and all the parties and the celebration. You have so much material, to go towards. So waiting until everything is cool and calm and quiet in the future, A, is not going to happen, and B, wouldn't be a great time. It wouldn't be any better than now anyway. Now, of course, this is totally up to you. You can say that it's hands up. I've had enough. I can't do this anymore. I'm just going to have to live like this. I'm just going to accept I'm going to drink too much. Can't take it anymore. That is for sure open to you. But please, I beg you, do not tell yourself that unless you really are going to quit and you're really going to give up on this and you're just going to move on and say, it's just not something I'm going to do. But if you are not going to quit today, right, then I want you to decide and do this. See how this feels on your body, that success is the only option. Kind of like that line in, Lose Yourself, that Eminem song that I love when I'm running, right? Success is the option. Well, that's a slightly sanitized version of the lyric. I like to keep this clean, right? But success is the only option. And then you've just got to look to yourself and really decide. I know it's going to be hard, and I know you may feel like you've got a long way to go, but I want you to think about what's at stake. Knowing how hard it is for you to say yes to yourself, knowing you've never done something like this before, and just being willing to start, being willing to feel deeply uncomfortable. How will you feel about yourself just being willing to take these decisions? Please, don't give yourself too much time. Don't put this off. Don't keep delaying your future. Get it done now. Blow your own mind with what you can do. Just this year, by the end of this year, this could be done. Right? The challenge, the overriding fear and the anxiety and everything around is done. Right? Be somewhere where you never imagined was possible. Yes, you're going to have new challenges. I've talked about that before on the podcast. But wouldn't you rather have new challenges than this same old one that you've been trying to do for years? Feeling free around alcohol is what's on offer for you. I can help you with this. You do not even need to know all the how. You do not have to look further than a call with me when I sort of will lay this out. These are the things that we're going to do based on what you tell me and based on what you want. Everybody's relationship with alcohol is different. And what you want is my goal, becomes my goal too. And I am there. You will not be alone. You will be supported. And you will get there. And you will look back, and then you will be somebody who you hear on my podcast or read on my website and says, I'm so glad I did that. I'm so glad I backed myself. It was worth every penny. Right? All those things that you hear. That is open to you now. Do not delay your future. Go to 90dayslater.co and book your free discovery call with me. Make this the point at which your future life starts. And then I will see you next week.